We're live, Your Worship.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Welcome, council colleagues, to council meeting number 15th, Wednesday, March 10th at 6:30 p.m. Of course, we're convening this meeting virtually as per COVID protocols. I look forward to being in the same room with everyone soon. At this point, it's my pleasure to call the meeting to order and to ask you to take a look at the agenda. I'm looking for a mover and presented that the revised council agenda for March 10th, 2021 be approved as presented. Ms. Babcock-Cormier, could you remind me, what is the revision?
So we've had a revision this evening with respect to the bylaw for part lot control. It's merely administrative. Schedule A to that bylaw has been replaced just to include the property identifier number. Okay. And then I believe that the other revision occurred last week, just in terms of amending a recommendation for grammar.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure for my council colleagues that we understood where the changes lay. So colleagues, Councillor Barkley, Councillor Strachan, would you like to move and second that, please? This is for the adoption of the agenda. Colleagues, any comments on the agenda as presented? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, please just raise your hands. Thank you. All right, so I'll move on to disclosures of interest. Of course, disclosures of interest are in regards to any perceived or real financial benefit or loss arising from items on tonight's agenda. Any disclosures? See none. I'll move on. We don't have any presentations or delegations this evening. We do have a consent agenda, and that's in regards to 2 sets of minutes. So perhaps Councillor O'Sullivan and Deputy Mayor, could you please consider moving and seconding the following, and that is that the consent agenda items be approved. We've got Jan 20th, 2021 council meeting minutes, as well as February 10th, 2021. Will you move and second, please? Thank you. Any comments on those items? Of course, our clerk's office is working with optimal efficiency here, so we're getting them nice and fast. Thank you, clerk's office. Yes, Councillor Barkley.
Just a question maybe for the clerk. If it's number 3 in the reports, the part lot control exemption, is that something we could add to the consent agenda if it's strictly administrative, or does it have to be heard?
So that particular bylaw we've left off of the consent agenda for now, but we can certainly consider doing that in the future with respect to similar items.
Good. Okay, excellent. So any other questions on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of the adoption of the minutes? Thank you. Okay, so we're going into our first public meeting, and that is the lifting of holding symbol on 1 Jalen Drive, and I'm just calling up the public notice provisions, so just forgive me, just give me a second. I don't, Ms. Babcock-Cormier, do you want to read it? I don't seem to have the script in front of me. Thank you.
Sure. Council will now hold a virtual public meeting to consider passing a bylaw to remove the H holding symbol from the zoning on the lands legally described as 1 Jalen Drive, Part Lot 7, Concession 7, Geographic Township of South Gore, now the Municipality of North Grenville. I must advise you that this meeting is your opportunity to voice any objections or concerns you may have with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. If an appellant does not provide comments at this public meeting or written submissions before council adopts the proposed amendment, the local planning appeal tribunal may refuse to consider their objections. Any persons who wish further notice of council's decision concerning this matter should give their full name, address, and postal code to David Nanton, Planner 2, via email following adjournment of this public meeting. Contact information can be found on the notice of public meeting and will be provided at the end of the presentation. Anyone wishing to ask a question during the public meeting can do so by using the raise hand feature on Zoom. When asking a question, please identify yourself and provide your address and postal code for the clerk to record as part of the public record. Are there people here for this public meeting? If so, could you please acknowledge yourself through the raise hand feature on Zoom? I'm not seeing any raised hands. And then it says that the meeting will be passed over to David Nanton.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Am I to share my screen with the presentation slides, or will that be placed on the screen?
I think it would be preferable if we could have the slides shared.
Mr. Nanton, if you could share the slides, Pollock will make that available for you.
So I have opened to multiple participants can share simultaneously. So David should be able to share his presentation.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
And everyone's able to see the presentation slide 1?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yep.
Great.
Thank you.
So this evening I'll be providing a presentation for the for 1 Jalen Drive for the lifting of holding symbol provision. Okay, and then my apologies. Is my screen showing a split on the recording? Can you guys confirm? Or is it just the presentation at this time?
It looks like it's just a presentation, Mr. Nanton. We see a site area slide with County Road 43 and 42.
Perfect. Thank you for confirming. So just to give some kind of context for where we're speaking about, the subject property, the application is located the southwest corner of a rural residential subdivision along Jalen Drive, and that's just north of the intersection of County Road 22 and 43, shown here in the black hatched area. So this application originally came forward through application ZBA 07-19 for a zoning bylaw amendment application. The applicant came forward requesting to have a small engine repair business as a permitted use, and also sought relief from side yard setbacks and the building height maximum for an accessory structure through the application. Council passed bylaw number 8419 to amend the zoning for the subject lands to permit that use, being a small engine repair business, and the site-specific zoning provisions. A holding provision was placed on the property to require a site plan agreement to be entered into to manage site development and the business operations. So matters such as outdoor storage, equipment, business operations were all taken into consideration through that. At this time, the property owner at 1 Jalen Drive has fulfilled this requirement by entering into a site plan agreement with the municipality, which addresses site development and the business operations. The site plan agreement included a provision for context, which required all of the zoning provisions and restrictions imposed on the site to be upheld by the owners. And again, that just speaks to outdoor storage, vehicle, equipment parking on and off-site uses, location of the building, as well as restrictions on the future expansion of the business and moving forward. Shown here on this slide, we are seeing the actual site plan that was submitted by the owner. What we can see, though, the detail is a little bit small. Single family dwelling, primary residential use on the property itself. Private services are to the rear of the dwelling, septic bed kind of center left on the property. And then the proposed accessory structure is just to the bottom right, shown with a 3-meter setback to the side yard property line, and well distanced away from the adjacent residence to the left and north of the property. At this time, staff are satisfied that the property owner has met the requirements of the holding provision, recommend that council approve and enact bylaw 29-21 to lift the holding provision for 1 Jalen Drive. If you have any questions, I'm available at this time. Thank you.
Colleagues, any questions in regards to Mr. Nanton's opening comments in regards to the lifting of the holding symbol? It seems fairly straightforward. And, oh, Councillor Barkley, go ahead.
Yeah, I remember this coming to council. I'm just curious, Mr. Nanton, what adjustments were made in order to satisfy the concerns that residents had about the setback and the visibility of it?
Thank you for the question. So the zoning provisions themselves, which are enforceable, are quite clear about managing the visual, the optics of the home-based business. And the intent of the zoning bylaw further reinforced through the site plan is that once that accessory structure is, in full capacity, has a final inspection on it, then those provisions about how the site is to function in accordance are then going to be imposed. I think there's a bit of a transitional period, but that's the big one, is that once the accessory building is established, then those restrictions are imposed on the property related to parking, storage in front of the property, and so forth.
Thank you.
I see.
No problem.
I see Councillor O'Sullivan. Councillor O'Sullivan.
Yes, thanks. So, Mr. Nanton, does this, did the zoning change to commercial in any way, or is it still rural residential with a special exemption, or?
Yeah, so thank you. Not to cut you off. The zoning on the property remained rural residential, as the intent was that this was a home-based business, that the owners live on the property first and foremost and facilitated business in accordance with that. So they have a site-specific zoning in the rural residential zone.
Okay, thank you. I received an email from this gentleman today regarding the roundabout at that intersection. And he was concerned about noise from vehicles at the roundabout. So I'm just concerned, or my question is, will the construction of the roundabout and the construction of his building, is there any change to his property line with the roundabout, or is there anything that would impact this going forward in any way?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So it's my understanding that the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville have obtained their required right-of-way along this stretch of County Road 43 and 22 to facilitate that proposed improvement, that being a roundabout. So I don't have any information at this time that would lead me to believe that that's an issue for the location of the building or for the property in total.
Okay, thank you. But in fact, this new building that he's going to have will actually be between the roundabout and his primary residence.
It could be seen as creating a type of buffer in between the two locations. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Mr. Nanton, have you received? I just want to confirm you've received no further comment in regards to the amended use on this property?
No, thank you for the question. So at the time that the zoning came forward, obviously there's a little more interest from the residents in terms of, I think if I was to paraphrase and not speak for them directly, it was basically saying it's not opposed to the use, it's about the visual impact on the rest of the neighborhood. So through the zoning, I believe the residents were satisfied with the restrictions that were imposed. And then it's the intent that through the site plan agreement, and then the zoning, once that building is fully constructed and final inspections are completed, then we can really make sure that those are actually followed through on.
Okay. So we have no reason then, obviously, to hesitate in terms of the lifting of the holding symbol based upon your assessment of the situation.
My assessment is that the zoning restrictions that came forward are very clear and very easily enforced by the municipality.
Okay.
So no issues.
So to that end, I guess before I move to the motion, I would like to say that the counties is in the very preliminary design stages of the likely roundabout at County Road 22 and 43. I know that they will be obviously consulting residents once they have better developed designs for the roundabout, which is at this stage what has been planned. We did receive a very quick update during the budget cycle. There will be no construction of a roundabout until 2022 at this point. So they're still in the design stages, and obviously COVID-19 through many capital projects behind by a minimum of a year. So that's a timing issue. It doesn't necessarily speak to some of the anxieties around the roundabout that we're hearing, but just for council's edification, that's where things are at. Councillor Sullivan, are you willing to move the motion that council approve and enact bylaw 2921 to lift the holding provision for 1 Jalen Drive? Thank you.
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Your
Councillor
worship,
Barkley?
my apologies for interrupting. We should
Yes.
probably read the balance of the public notice.
And I apologize, I don't have it, so I'll defer to
Yep.
you. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. Council will now hear from the applicant, followed by questions or comments from members of the public who wish to comment either for or against the proposal. Following any comments from the public, the applicant will be offered an opportunity to respond to questions raised. All persons wishing to address the proposal will ask their questions through the chair. Please state your name, address, and postal code prior to council. Council members may also wish to ask questions through the chair. To those making presentations, please be advised that any members of the public who wish to provide written comment regarding the proposed bylaw can still do so after the public meeting is adjourned. Written comment can be received up until the bylaw is considered by council. It is intended that the bylaw will be brought forward for consideration on March 10th, 2021.
Great, thank you very much, Ms. Babcock-Cormier. And of course, we have confirmed that there is no one here to speak to this issue this evening. With that in mind, we'll move to the motion then.
Yes, I'll just confirm that the public meeting is closed at 6:51 p.m.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
So again, with the agreement of Councillor O'Sullivan and Councillor Barkley, the motion is that council approve and enact bylaw 2921 to lift the holding provision for 1 Jalen Drive. To that end, are there any further comments, council? Seeing none, I'll call the question then. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to draft plan extension, Jack Joseph subdivision. I understand this is not a public meeting. Is that correct, Ms. Babcock-Cormier?
That's correct, Your Worship.
Okay, so to that end, we will hear from, is it Ms. Martin or Mr. Nanton this evening?
I will be addressing that matter tonight, Mayor Peckford. The draft plan extension is a matter of housekeeping. We've had a request from the owner of the Jack Joseph subdivision to extend their draft plan approval for an additional year. A little history on this file, a draft plan approval was originally granted in 2013 and for a period of 3 years. And since 2017, it's been extended annually for an additional year. The developer is seeking an additional extension for this year, for another year, to allow for them more time to explore the development of their property. They're looking at potentially different options in addition, other than the 14 units, but they still want to reserve the right to develop as a 14 lot single detached subdivision. I will note that our engineering standards are in the process of being updated. So this would be the last year that staff would be supportive unless the developer came forth with a very valid reason for another extension in future years. And it's just the fact that our engineering standards will be updated, and the engineering standards to which they originally had provided their drawings to will be considered outdated by then. Thank you.
Ms. Martin, I understand, obviously, I think in the early stages of this plan subdivision, there was some anxiety about impact, et cetera. When you say you are updating, or obviously the municipality, I think with our support is updating engineering standards, what does that mean?
The engineering standards is the document that we provide to developers for our subdivision developments, and it pertains to items such as roadways, stormwater management. It's truly the engineering piece for the assets that we assume at the end of the day. I know that Director Dunlop is also on this meeting. I don't know if she has anything else to add to those guidelines that are live with Public Works, but it's just updating the engineering standards to which we provide the developers when they're going through the plan of subdivision process.
Great. Councillor O'Sullivan?
Thank you. I do recall the meeting last year when we extended this for one more year. And I think there was discussion regarding if I remember correctly, I think there was discussion regarding capacity that was allotted to this. And I know it's only 14 single homes, but is that going to have any impact? Probably not. But with respect to their subdivision agreement regarding sidewalks, trees, things that this council would like to see in any new subdivision, regardless of how large or small it is. Do we still have an opportunity to add that into an extension for them? And what about affordable housing in this?
The draft.
are questions.
Sorry for cutting off. Draft plan approval was granted back in 2013, which would have required those items regarding landscaping or sidewalks and those matters. In regard to affordable housing, not at this point in the game could we require them to add it in, because the draft plan approval's already been given, and back in 2013 there was no requirement for the provision of affordable housing. Moving forward, if they don't achieve a subdivision agreement and registration in the next year, or any efforts towards that, they would have to start from scratch for the redevelopment of those properties, where those principles could be brought in for further consideration. This is one of those legacy subdivisions. We've had a few of them that are starting with the growth that the municipality is seeing in the past year on the housing front, are really starting to push these kind of dormant projects forward. So I mean, that is also a consideration, is that we're not able to address some of those more pressing items on these older files that have been kicking around for a little while.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on this particular subdivision at this stage? This is obviously just a draft extension. So more to come if we, more to come, in that we'll likely be revisiting this file in a year. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask Councillor Strachian and Deputy Mayor to move and second the following, and that is that council support the request to extend the draft plan approval for the Jack Street subdivision by 1 year, and direct the clerk to circulate this report to the clerk of the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville. Is there any further comment? Seeing none, then I will call the question. All in favor, please. Thanks. So moving on, we're looking at part lot control exemption for the Creek subdivision. And I believe, Ms. Martin, you're managing that file tonight.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, it's bedtime here. Apologies. So the part lot control exemption bylaw is a matter of housekeeping. So the Creek subdivision Lioness Developments have applied to lift part lot control on a series of blocks within their subdivision that have been intended for townhouse development. So it would be premature at the draft plan stage to say this is exactly where the property line is going to be on a townhouse. Typically, we wait until the foundations are in to have the surveyor come out and then draw those lines on a map to properly identify where those lots are. So when we're creating the lots, we're doing it properly. We're not having to go back through the planning process to fix those corrections. So part lot control exemption is just is more administrative on our end to allow them to create the lots once they've started that townhouse development.
And the total of 72 lots, is that the final number?
Yes, 72 townhouse unit lots by the time they're finished subdividing the blocks.
And you said townhouse? Are you describing a particular kind of house that they're selling in there?
Yeah, so that's what the development is. That they'll be creating part lot control. So under their draft plan, they were approved for I want to say 5 blocks. That would create 72 townhouse units.
Okay, and is that the entirety of the subdivision, or are these specific to the 72 townhouse lots?
So it would just be specific to those blocks. The rest of the balance of the subdivision is being developed as single detached dwellings.
That's what I thought. And do you recall, Ms. Martin, the total number of residential units that will be in?
Not off the top of my head. I'd have to go look that up.
And of course,
I know there's, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I know there's a significant amount of single detached dwellings. I want to say it's in the ballpark of around, I want to say around 100 and between 140 and 150 units is what's ringing in my head, but I'd have to go back and look at what they were draft approved for.
And that's, you're talking about the single attached dwellings specifically?
Plus the,
Oh, so
the
it's
town-
combined, you're looking
Yeah,
at
combined,
approximately 150 homes.
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, council inherited this subdivision, and the subdivision agreement, as I understand it, was very much in play when we came, when we were elected to council. So we've been watching the evolution of this subdivision, but the terms under which this subdivision were developed were largely not under this council's purview, is my understanding.
Yes, that's correct. So subdivisions often take quite a few years
Mhm.
from, the conceptual stage to the draft plan stage to the registration stage. There's a lot of steps in between. So they're not, a few months projects. They can take years. So often subdivisions will live well beyond a term of council just in their development.
Yes, indeed. Okay. And I just want to note while we're on this, that there's been multiple issues raised in regards to other elements that we're not discussing tonight in terms of parkland, speeds on River Road, which we're trying to manage through a different process. So we watch intently in regards to the evolution of this subdivision and hope to get further updates, as it is appropriate. So with that in mind, I'll ask council colleagues, are there any other questions in regards to this particular matter? Okay. So then I'll look for a motion, and the motion is that council approve and enact bylaw 3021 to lift the part lot control within the Creek subdivision. Who would like to move that? Councilor Barkley and Deputy Mayor, thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I then will call the question. All in favor? To 72 townhomes. There we are. Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Martin. And I think we'll move down on the agenda. So at this point, we have no informational reports, no correspondence, no notices of motion, unless Yep.
Your worship, sorry, my apologies. We do have the Public Works report with respect to the transfer payment agreement, safe restart agreement.
I'm looking at the posted agenda on the website, so I don't see that. Okay. So I'll have Ms. Dunlop present on that. And maybe I'll look to you, Ms. Babcock-Cormier, for the motion for the wording. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This evening, I'm just here to report in regards to an additional bylaw and transfer payment agreement, which is required in order to be signed and submitted to the province on or before March 12th, in order to be eligible up to $10,353 of Phase 2 Public Transit Safe Restart Program funds. This program covers the October 20th to March 31st, 2020 period. We are anticipating a Phase 3 program, which will cover the balance of 2021 and possibly an extension into 2022. We have submitted Phase 1 funding valued at $2,967 with a possibility of $13,000 remaining. The balance will roll over into Phase 2. This is separate from the MTEC agreement, which funded COVID cleaning-based costs. These funds are to cover items such as fare box revenue losses, advertising losses, and any other parking or contract revenue losses, plus any other COVID-related operating and capital costs other than those that are covered under the MTEC agreements. And that is just my quick report because it's a housekeeping nature product.
Thanks, Ms. Dunlop. Are there any questions from council in regards to this? Okay. Seeing nothing, then I'll look to Ms. Babcock-Cormier for the motion, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. That council pass and enact bylaw 31-21, being a bylaw to authorize entering into a transfer payment agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Transportation for the province of Ontario to receive funding through the Safe Restart Agreement Public Transit Funding Program, and 2, to authorize the Director of Public Works to execute and submit to the Ministry of Transportation all further documents of an administrative nature required to comply with the terms of the transfer payment agreement.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, you want to move that? I'll look for a seconder. Councilor Sullivan, thank you. Okay. Any further discussion on this? Obviously, it's just housekeeping. I expect none. All in favor then? Please just show your hands. Thank you. Okay. So now I think I can move beyond the substantive items on the agenda. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct, Your Worship.
Okay. So again, no informational reports, no correspondence, no notice of motions unless someone wants to cue us to something unforeseen. Seeing nothing, introduction and consideration of bylaws. Ms. Babcock-Cormier, we have dealt with those. Is that correct?
I confirm that's correct, Your Worship.
Excellent. So really, we do, I think, have a member, or we did have a member of the media, but just in case, I thought I saw one, now I don't. So I'll just confirm, clerk, are there questions from the media?
I am not seeing any members of the media still in attendance, and I haven't received any written comments.
Okay, great. So with that in mind, then we'll go to close the meeting. So we have the confirmation bylaw, and again, I'll defer to you, clerk, to read that.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. That bylaw 32-21 to confirm the proceedings of council at its regular meeting held on March 10, 2021 be adopted and passed.
Great. So a mover and seconder, Councilor Strachan and Councilor O'Sullivan, please. Thank you. I will call the question on that. All in favor, please. Confirmation bylaw. There we go. And then a resolution to adjourn. Deputy Mayor, Councilor Barclay, you're good. So it's in nearly record time at 7:07, one of our shorter meetings. I will ask for a motion to adjourn at 7:07.
I hate to extend this meeting beyond necessary, but we have two members of the public. I see Brian and Julia Forbes. Do we ask for any questions from members of the public?
Oh, I apologize. I did do media. I did not refer specifically to the public. They're combined on my agenda. So absolutely, I'll ensure that no member of the public wants to speak at this time. Do we have members of the public wishing to speak?
Your Worship, we do have two members of the public in attendance, but my understanding is they are present for the Committee of Adjustment meeting immediately following.
So just no one seems to be turning on their mic. So with the indulgence of Madame Clerk, I will carry on with the motion. So we are moving to adjourn at 7:08 p.m. I'll call the question on the motion. All in favor? Good. Okay. Thank you very much. So are we using the same link or a different link?
The same link, Your Worship. Myself and Ms. Mehta are going to log off, and Ms. Martin and Mr.